back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are presenting our Wise Conversations and our newest sponsor, Wise Supermarkets. My wife picked up the organic milk. We found the whole organic section at Wise. We'll be talking about nutrition, amongst other things. But right now, we are talking March Madness with our pal, Chris Pika from Blog and Tackle, who has been Mount St. Joeing. He has been Loyola Greyhounding. He has been Frisco Texasing. And, Chris, I always call you like an insider. And you're one of my most enjoyable people to talk to because you've worked at sort of every level, television, inside, colleges, March Madness, Michael Jordan's bus, all of that. But the COVID era of working. Welcome to Plague Life a year into this thing. You did a tournament this week, and there's a pretty big tournament in Indiana this week that putting this stuff together, maybe how the sausage is made. We don't hear much about that. I thought it'd be a good time to bring you in and talk about, the tournament shows up on television and we all wave and watch Maryland play and fill out our brackets. Boy, there's just a lot of stuff going on at the collegiate level, right? To get these games, as they would say, get the horses to post.
It is. I mean, I worked the Conference USA tournament in Frisco, Texas, as I've done the last 6 years, and the last 4 there in Frisco. Last year, we got through our first day, and literally we're getting the tip off on day 2 on what would have been last Wednesday, and they wound up canceling the tournament because the dominoes were all falling at that point, and the sports world was coming to a complete halt, and we were certainly caught up in that. So it was kind of strange to be back in the exact same place with teams, coaches, staff, everybody in the new reality of masks, social distancing, hand sanitizer, washing your hands, tested and untested sides of the arena in terms of how we were operating to keep the team safe and keep all of us safe, referees, everything else. It was a lot of work. I mean, all of us on staff were tested daily in the morning. There was a side of the arena that was designated for only people with the certain credential that said COVID-19 tested and with a sticker for the given day.
How many people were in the building? 100?
Well, let's see. Championship game, I think we had about 700 in crowd from both.
So you had family, basically.
Yeah, basically, yes. Each school was given a certain amount of tickets that they could dispose as they wanted to. So championship game, North Texas, Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky always travels well. And North Texas obviously being a local school. So the men's championship game had about 700 in-house, but you do have media. CBS was in there. Carter Blackburn was calling the games with Avery Johnson. They were going straight to Indianapolis to go into that bubble. So it doesn't
feel like a practice. It feels like a high school game, kind of, sort of.
Well, no, I mean, the games, it was nice, though, to actually have crowd in there. I mean, actually hear crowd sound and cheering. And I said that to somebody. I said, it's been so long since you actually hear, not canned sound in an arena or a field. I mean, these were people cheering their teams on.
You worked empty buildings last year, right? Like Luke did. I didn't work a whole lot of them. I went to 3 football games.
We played the first day with fans last year. The second day, we were tipping off without fans. We were going to play the rest of the tournament without fans prior to everybody canceling, and then we canceled with them. So that was the plan after day 1 when everything started to kind of go south. It was going to be a fanless tournament, but this year there was limited admission, but that was like, tickets to family and friends and whatever in terms of the teams.
Chris Pike is here. He is Blog and Tackle. He's in South Baltimore. I used to have to say you're in Flowery Branch, or you're in the floweriest of branch I can think of, somewhere near Southern High School. For you with the basketball tournament and where we are, I'm a little shocked it's all come together, to be honest with you. I was one of those guys in November or December that wasn't really buying into getting into college basketball. No Duke, no Kentucky. Maybe there is a God. But at least for this tournament, this is the first weekend where I'm a little more compelled, dare I say, and you and I have spent a life in sports, that the whole year sort of comes into focus to say, all right, March Madness is going to look normal on television this weekend. I would think in a week and a half, we're going to have baseball and people are going to be able to go. You and Kate can go to a game, right, and sit and have a beer in the outfield, whatever you want. So there is sort of this, what, my wife's got a shot, right? Your wife has a shot. So we're coming out of this tunnel a little bit. It feels like a blink and a year later, March Madness may be the gateway from a sports fan perspective to something that feels normal, at least on a made-for-television, true TV kind of way.
Well, I think the NCAA and the tournament have followed along what the NFL has done, what the NBA has done, what the NHL has done, and Major League Baseball to a lesser extent has done. I was talking to someone, a friend of mine, who's actually working in operations in Indianapolis, and the hotels are going to be completely locked down. Teams will go from their rooms to a designated meal room, then they will go to a designated practice area at the Indiana Convention Center, which you know very well from the Combine, and then they will go on their buses to their game sites, whether that's at West Lafayette or Hinkle Fieldhouse, the historic building on Butler's campus, or at Indiana, or any of the other sites that they have. So they've worked very hard, and our champion teams, CUSA's champion teams, stayed in town. They stayed in Frisco after Saturday night, and then traveled, in North Texas's case, they were traveling Sunday, I believe, to Indianapolis to go into that bubble. And Middle Tennessee was going to bus down to San Antonio from Dallas to get into the women's bubble as our women's champions. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to try to keep everybody safe. There was a report recently that a few referees, including some names that people would know if they watch college basketball, went out for dinner because their room wasn't ready in Indianapolis since one of the referees tested positive, which knocked out basically six of the 60 referees. Six of the top ones are now out of the tournament because of contact tracing. So it's still going to be, it's going to be interesting. But everybody has opted in. There's still a period where some changes can be made. But the expectation is that all 68 teams get to Indianapolis will start the tournament. And the hope is that once you're in the bubble and starting the tournament in Indianapolis, that there won't be any issues from start to finish there with the teams that participate.
Quite a week of sports, Chris Pika. You got a little Greyhound excitement in you before, right? You got some Marcel excitement as I wear my Pizza John's Maryland colors hat for the Terrapins. I think I'm going to get me and I know you'll frown upon this. I'm going to get a pineapple and pepperoni pizza at Pizza John's. Frown away. Have whatever you want. Get a crab cake.
No, I'm doing pineapple.
That's fine. I'm a pineapple and a pizza kind of guy. I am. For this week specifically, St. Patrick's Day and what it represents in America, whether drinking Irish green, the notion that it's 70 degrees, the notion that there's March Madness, the feeling that opening day is a couple of weeks away. And then there's like the Ravens signing Zeitler and players moving around in the league and trades. That's what I mean. Like, I would say the sports section is back now in more of a relevant way where, derby preps and golf tournaments and stuff, right? Like, so there is some bubbling activity of sports normalcy, and not just that it's on television, lacrosse, all of this, right?
It is. And I think as people get the vaccine and, it looked like a normal day at the airports, both at BWI and at Love Field in Dallas coming back. I was on a completely full flight coming back from Dallas-Fort Worth. It feels that there's a corner being turned, but we're still a long way from home. You still have to put teams in bubbles. You still have to be incredibly careful, as we all do in our daily lives. But it just feels like that by summertime and certainly by the fall, we'll be in a much better position. And I think that does start with the events of this week, because we'll get into the normal calendars. March Madness will lead to the Masters. The Masters will lead to opening day. And so some of those things that were started later didn't start at all. The schedules are coming back to their normal positions in the calendar. And so for sports fans, now you know when things are going to happen and things are going to play. There's still a lot of uncertainty. There's still a lot of things that we have to get through. But it does feel in some respects like there are some patterns of normalcy that are beginning to happen in the regular world, the sports world, and we'll, hopefully that continues into the summer, because I think we'd all like to be out on the other side of this sooner than later.
Look, man, you spent a lot of time in a truck down in Atlanta doing baseball games and working baseball games, but you spent a whole lifetime traveling through the South and New Orleans where they didn't even have baseball, San Antonio for a couple of minutes and whatever. You're back here in Baltimore, and you move back here finally after all these years. You're Mount St. Jonas. You have not literally held hands with your wife, locked the doors in your house, and walked to a baseball game yet, and like had proper like boogs and like you're gonna have the ability. I know there's a part of you that like that's cool. That's something you didn't even have a chance to do as a kid, right? Because you lived in the neighborhood where the baseball ballpark is now, but it wasn't a baseball ballpark back then.
No, it was not. No.
How did you get to games, Memorial Stadium? What did you do?
Number 3 bus from Pratt Calhoun. I mean, you have to take the bus down, and I forget what the other bus was, the connection downtown to go out there. But I would take the number 3 down into downtown, and you have to do the connect.
The number 3 that went to Bainesville, as I always
yeah, but I can't remember the connection number, and that's really sad. But
did the 3 go to Cherry Hill? Am I nuts? When I would take the 22, right? So I took the 22 to Highlandtown.
Right.
Right.
The 3 would go out like Lombard Street. I mean, the 3 would go out like Lombard Street when Lombard Street went west in those years. And so you take that one coming back at that's really sad. We can't remember.
Well, I mean, I know this. I know like you can now, when the season begins, buy a ticket and you can walk to an Oriole game from where you live. I know that there's a part of you that one of the reasons you came back to Baltimore, you didn't just come because you love me or Baltimore Positive or crabs or crab cakes, is that part of it was like you are a baseball guy and you'd like to walk to an Oriole game once in a while.
We'd like to be able to be a part of that. We'd like to, opening day will be different this year. I'm looking forward to opening day in 22 when the place is full and the downtown bars and everything are going.
And Adley Rutschman's bat.
That sort of civic celebration, that full civic celebration. It'll be a half celebration this year, a quarter celebration, but those are the types of things that make a city a city. It makes a major league city a city, is having those types of shared experiences that you can go and do that, whether that's, as simple as St. Patrick's Day and going to a bar or, any of the things that we do here to go to our neighborhood places. To be able to do that on opening day with a full house of 45,000. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It won't be this year, but it'll certainly be next, in my mind.
Chris Pike is here, Blog and Tackle. You want to talk a little Ravens with me here? I mean, off season and salary caps and numbers and Lamar Jackson and the kinds of questions that Eric DeCosta's getting and on Ozzie Newsome's birthday nonetheless. An interesting couple of weeks. The Ravens always pass these tests, right? The fact that they sign the guy they want before it even gets going because he had been cut. There's no tampering, clean and neat. Get a veteran player, pretty typical veteran player wants to play here, a guy who's never really won. Wants to come here and try to win. That's a Ravens kind of signing this week, right?
It is. I mean, and I think most people understand, the smart fans understand that a lot of this is planned out in January. As soon as your team is eliminated, you begin to have your meetings, your exit meetings, and you start looking at your roster, and you know which players are most likely to re-sign with your team, which players are probably looking for a better deal, maybe in Baltimore, maybe in other places, and the Ravens start making those decisions on how much they'll pay and to what point they'll pay with certain people. And they'll also target particular free agents and cut players that they think are going to be out there, and they start sort of making those inroads. And that's what every team does. So the signings and the moves you see now at the start of free agency, a lot of this has been planned and worked on since early in January in some cases. And if you know your team day in and day out, and John Harbaugh and Eric, they certainly know their 53 and the practice squad guys. They know who wants to stay in Baltimore. They know the price points for certain players, and they know certain guys that, hey, I'm not a fit now because of position changes, and maybe I'm looking for a better deal. Famously they let Ray Lewis look and other key players look. Hey, you want to see what the market is out there? Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome to it. This is where we're going to be. And so that's part of making sound fiscal decisions in football. You have to take you have to take the emotion out of it. I mean, it is a business. You want to win games. You can't be too much in love with players in some cases, or you wind up overpaying. I mean, Jerry Jones is a great example in Dallas. I mean, I was in Frisco during the Dak press conference. I didn't go over there to see it, but I think I think the quote was, "Most things I wanted in life, I overpaid for." Well, they haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. Okay, he's done a lot of paying, but hadn't done a lot of return. The Ravens do their share of paying, but they don't overpay, and they've gotten their share of returns. They've had 2 trophies since the Cowboys have hoisted their last one.
Well, since we've been in the league, the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl.
Right. That's what I mean.
I've always wanted to say that.
It's right. It's all different ways of looking at it, but the Ravens have always been one of the smarter teams. I'm not saying you cut a player a year too early or a year too late, but you have to be dispassionate when you look at the roster saying, hey, we think this is a player. It's a long-term player. This is a short-term player. And you make those decisions and you stick by them, and you don't let the market dictate a panic or a coach or an agent saying, well, I got 3 offers from X because he's trying to drum up interest from another club. I mean, if you're smart enough, you know what's out there for that player, and you just wait for that player to come back to you.
Chris, the musical chairs with the quarterbacks, right? Whether it's the Carson Wentz deal in Philadelphia, and I know you follow Andrew Brandt, who's as astute as anybody, talking about the money of that deal and how difficult it was going to be to deal him. And they found a partner. They found a former coach in Indianapolis. He'll go there. I don't know how he'll play. That remains to be seen, for any of these quarterbacks. Russell Wilson and the issues in Seattle and Deshaun Watson in Houston, these are going to be the biggest stories in sports over the next month as to what's going to happen there and what happens with names like that at this point in the market with draft picks, money, years, and then how it relates to what Lamar's going to get from the Ravens as well. But this is a more interesting offseason because of those quarterbacks and because of sort of the panic in Houston right now. And I would think there's going to be some panic in Seattle before it's all over with.
Well, I mean, Houston has had a lot of turnover. I mean, obviously, they turned over the coach. They've turned over the general manager.
They turned over the PR director.
Yeah, Amy Palsik's now down in Jacksonville. She's got her hands full with Urban Meyer.
The other ball coach.
Ooh. And so they've been through an awful lot, and they've changed the culture of the organization. They've changed a lot of the background people that we don't know. But if you're a player, you're close to your equipment guys. You're close to the video guys. And so when those changes are kind of made, it can set the dynamic a little bit. And you have an owner, quite honestly, in Cal McNair, who's a rookie in a lot of this, and it might be showing. You've got a great talented Deshaun Watson, but they've also let J.J. Watt walk. I mean, so I'm not sure, as my good friend Randy Mueller would say, I'm not sure what the plan is. I'm not sure what the plan is.
I'm not sure that there is a plan.
That's right. That's what I mean. And that's what I talk about with the Ravens. You have to have a plan going into the offseason as to what you're going to do. Yes, there's going to be a surprise or two, but you have to know, and you have to invest your top players, not necessarily in the decision process, but you have to at least hear them out. And what you're getting from the John McClains and others that cover them in Houston is that they haven't really taken anything from Deshaun or listened to anything he's had to say, which would then lead me to believe that they're ready to move on from him at some point. Seattle's a little different case. I mean, that's kind of weird because Pete Carroll, I think, is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And they usually have a very good team, and they've got a very good plan in Seattle, and they've been good. But they've had some turnover too. But Pete's not going anywhere. They're not changing the GM. They're not changing the coach. So it'll be interesting what happens with Russell Wilson and what they build around him with, or if they decide to move on. I mean, there's a lot of things yet to happen before the draft, and there are offers to be made and decisions to be made on what they're going to do. And again, it all goes back to the planning you do in January.
Feels good to be having a normal sports conversation, dude. We've talked like Terps and basketball, and I've given some local shout-outs to you. We talked Orioles opening day. We haven't talked crab cakes yet, you and I. So crab cakes, you and I, because this is where we're going. I'm going to take you for one crab cake, final supper, last crab cake you ever have. Where are you taking me?
Prime rib.
All right. I've never had a prime rib crab cake.
Absolutely. I mean, just jumbo lump. And I'm not sure, Kate and I will both say, we're not sure how it's held together on the plate. But it was something I discovered. Matter of fact, when I came in with the Saints years ago, we took our marketing guests to the prime rib for dinner, and everybody else is having a steak and a $300 bottles of wine. I'm sitting there with a local beer and crab cakes, and I might be the happiest guy at the table. Uh, so that was a nice revelation. But yeah, if I had to pick, they're probably the one. If I had to have one, that would be the one.
Goes to the prime rib and orders a crab cake.
Yes.
I got you. Okay.
Yes.
Maybe you should rename it the crab cake. We'll find it. Listen, I'm going to be crab caking everywhere there is a crab cake to have. I want to go out and support local businesses. The folks at the Prime Rib have been very kind to me over the years. Of course, we've been partners with Ruth's Chris all these years. I'm going to be going there. We're going to be going to Fadley's because they ship crab cakes, as do our partners at Costas, as well as Pizza John's. I'm even wearing a hat. They've added a crab cake to their repertoire, to their starting rotation down in Essex as well. I'm going to be out at State Fair where Evan has been throwing crab cakes around like crazy, and we had this long conversation about the history of crab cakes and what's in it, as well as my pal Chad over at Al's Seafood. He and I talked a little crab cakes on the side, so everybody fancy themselves a crab cake connoisseur. And the best part is, like, the crab cake you just gave me is a crab cake I've never had, which is what's going to make this fun. It's like going to a ballpark you've never been to, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody has their favorite place in town. There's 100 places that do crab cakes in probably 75 different ways, and everybody enjoys it. You know, maybe it's a childhood memory, maybe it's a family memory, maybe it's just something that, you know, when you think about it, whether it's Fadley's, you know, you get it shipped to you wherever you live when you're an expat, you're not living in Baltimore. So everybody has their favorites. We all love the crab, however it's served. Whether it's steamed or soft crab sandwich.
Dude, you didn't live
crab.
here for like a lot of your life. It's the first thing you always did when you came home. Like, you had to have crabs. Like, it was a part of how I hung out with you, taking you to Al's or Costas or whatever.
Exactly.
And that would be the stain of Baltimore. If you leave here, it would be the first thing you'll do when you come home, because you can't do it anywhere else.
Yeah, and also it's funny because my wife is not a mustard fan on steamed crabs. I certainly am. Okay, if you're really local, it's like I know where they're coming from, but I still
She ain't from around here.
No. So no, but that's the beauty of it. It's you have crab cakes in different places, and some are okay and some are great, but everybody has their favorite neighborhood joint that does it. And the best part about it is it's plentiful here, and it's Maryland blue crabs, which we all want to have come from. We all know where they come from in the off season because I live there.
It goes with
Louisiana.
beer. It goes with beer.
Yep. I mean, incredibly cheap in Louisiana. I mean, when you can get a dozen jumbos for $24.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on. You lived in Louisiana for a long time. So did you find some place down there that served or did you ship in the Old Bay?
No. I mean, we're talking about the regular places because Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana is a major crab source.
I understand that, but did they have crab houses there serving Maryland style crabs, or I thought they brought crawfish?
You can find places that do it both ways. Most of what we found in Louisiana was boiled crabs, which is a completely different taste. Where the crab boil, the Old Bay or the crab boil basically runs through the meat in the boil. It
makes it really salty, right?
It can be. It depends on the crab boil they're using. Because down there, Old Bay is obviously everywhere here. Jo is everywhere here. Zatarain's is basically the crab boil choice down in Louisiana. So
that's spicier.
Yeah, a little bit more spicy. So it's a different way to get it. But to sit at a table and have a dozen, basically what would be jumbos here at home for $24 to $30 a dozen, regardless whether boiled or steamed, is still a great treat. So, I think that was something that we did enjoy down there.
Dude, did you ever look? I'm Baltimore positive, and so I don't want to be negative about anything, but I just want to say this one time because they're not in business anymore, as I know it. Maybe they are at the airport. I had never been to O'Bricky's in my life.
Neither had I.
Okay, so we moved downtown, and like the number $20. We talked about buses earlier. Used to go past O'Bricky's every, when I went through Highlandtown, and I guess that's Upper Fells Point, Butchers Hill,
Right.
whatever you would call it. And in about 2005, maybe, or 6, me and my wife and Ken and Meg, who live in Federal Hill, they're our neighbors, our lifer pals here. They love crabs. Kenny's from Bel Air, and Meg's from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. But they love Maryland crabs. And we said, let's go over to O'Bricky's. We live downtown. We had just moved downtown. And I was looking for like a downtown place, doing something we'd never done. So we walked over to O'Bricky's and sat down and ordered crabs. And I was expecting crabs, like regular crabs. And when they delivered them to the table, only time in my life that this has ever happened anywhere, anytime, okay? That's why I'm telling this story, because I don't know of anywhere else that you would go. And O'Bricky's would be like a place baseball players would call their favorite crab house in Baltimore, right? Like they would say, oh, I can't wait to get to Baltimore. We're going to O'Bricky's and getting crabs. And I would always think, well, that's a big, like they must be really good crabs. And Chris, I'm from Dundalk, man. And when I'm telling you, I've eaten tens of thousands of crabs. I mean, I'm telling you, I've eaten I've had crabs at Ruggiero's and Ross's and A1 and places that don't even exist anymore. Names that would, the corral that would only mean something to people from my neighborhood because there were so many places to go to get crabs when I was a kid. My dad would have all the numbers written down next to the phone, and we would call, how much for a dozen? You got the 18s? $18. That's a lot of money for a dozen crabs back in 78. So a million crabs in a million places. Every single one of them, serve them red with some semblance of what you can currently get on a Costas crab or an Al's crab or like Old Bay or whatever Chesapeake Bay style. Went to O'Bricky's. They brought me crabs. They threw them on a table. And they're as white as this paper. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, and I touched it and I'm like, well, it's kind of peppery, but it's not. They didn't serve like normal crab. I don't even know what the hell you call it, but it was like a white pepper or a black pepper. I don't even know. But your hands didn't smell. When you washed your hands afterward, the morning after, you didn't smell like Old Bay, nothing. Mm-hmm. It didn't taste like normal crabs. So when you talk to me about boiling a crab in Zatarain's or, whatever, or in anything, quite frankly, it reminds me of when I was out on a pier at Fisherman's Wharf out in San Francisco, and they're trying to sell me on that Dungeness crab, or up there at Pike Place in Seattle, and they're trying to sell me Dungeness crab. I don't know, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you don't mess with a crab in that way. And no offense to O'Bricky's, and I'm not even down in it because people like it. It's fine. I've never been served a crab since. Only once in my life. O'Bricky's isn't there anymore. I don't even know where you could go and order quote-unquote crabs in this state and have anything thrown in front of you other than the thing that you and I know is going to make our hands stink the next day, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Louisiana style, they're red crabs. They're red as we get up here. It's just the difference is they're not crusted with.
But more spicy, more like Cajun.
I wouldn't call them super spicy. Maybe a little bit more salty, but I don't think. I mean, the saltiest.
But it doesn't taste the same, right?
The saltiest steamed crab I ever had here was at Gunnings, in I guess Brooklyn Park, the original location.
They famously dumped it on.
Oh, I took Kate there, and we're just like this. I mean, my mouth and my hands were burning afterwards. I've never had a hotter crab.
And your ring is glued on because everything takes on like swell, right?
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, I had never had a crab that hot or that spicy. I mean, But
I don't mean it like that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, but I am going to explore crab cakes and crabs and Crabtopia, and I guess I put this crab on the logo without even realizing that there was going to come a point where we were going to utilize this, Chris, right?
Well, I think, the best part about crabs is it cuts across all lines. It cuts across, everything. Everybody, regardless of political leaning, sports leaning, neighborhood you live in, everybody loves the crab.
Somebody's going to write to me pissed and say, O'Bricky's was the greatest crab ever. And I'm going to say, if you've eaten, all I would say, Chris, is if you ate crabs at O'Bricky's and it's the only place you ever ate crabs as like some ball player that came here in the 80s, you never ate crabs. You know what I mean? Like, that's not crabs. I don't know what it is. It's fine. People like it. Wasn't for me, but that wasn't crabs. I don't know what it was, but it's not crabs.
But it's a beautiful debate because we all have our favorite crab houses. We all have our favorite crab cakes and neighborhood joints and all of that. And that's what makes Baltimore such a great place because, you know, that's something everybody can talk about. You know, you can sit at a table with someone who, you know, you may not agree with on a lot of things, but you can have a spirited discussion about crabs and crab cakes and make a friend and have that communal experience soon of being able to sit at a table with 20 strangers with a pile of crabs and have our crab feast again and all the things that make this so special.
I remember when I said to Damie Hahn that I liked pimento in my crab cake, and Nancy Devine looked at me like, the hell's wrong with you, you know? And I was in a conversation with Chad from Al's Seafood, and we're hoping to get Al's back up and running. There's a little rumor of a pop-up happening. I'll be letting you know about that. But I was talking to Chad. He said that he has been a part of crab cake competitions and different things like that. He said he once went to a crab cake competition, and someone made it with relish. Now, so I started to think about like relish in tartar sauce, right? Like in the mayonnaise, and thinking as an accoutrement, you know, somebody would take a crab cake and put tartar on it, right? So you are using relish in that way. So these are questions for the ages, and these are things that I think I am very aptly capable and competent to further explore, at least. If never becoming an expert, at least to enter the discussion of greater wisdom. How about that?
Yeah, I haven't gone down the crab egg roll thing that's going on here.
What?
Still haven't. We haven't gotten to that point yet. Haven't had a chance.
What? Who's making that? Anybody's got a crab egg roll place, or like a crab wonton always is that crappy cheese. No.
We're talking. We're
crab. Never had a crab
like, there's a place in South Baltimore that does it. There's a couple of restaurants that are doing it. It's sort of a new thing, but I have not had a chance to check it out.
A whole new argument. Crab wontons. I'm gonna
crab. Well, that's a whole different. I mean, that's not, you know,
the Chinese Rangoon crab. I'm not down with that. No. Not even with a plum sauce. I'm out. Tap me out. All right, Chris. Love you. Appreciate you. Blog and Tackle, the way to find Chris. Dude, I didn't give you any oxygen on the Greyhounds. Anything you want to say on the Greyhounds before we go, or no?
Just listen, in a strange season where a lot of strange things happen, I think Tavares Hardy did a great job. You know, very few people can walk into Army and Navy and win games and get to the championship game. Colgate was a pretty good team and a pretty good opponent.
Japanese and the Germans tried it. You saw that?
Yeah, exactly. It's rare to go get 2 road wins against Army and Navy in this country. But no, they had a great run to the finals, and I think the future's looking up. Again, they lost a lot of games to the postponements, but I think Tavares has them on the right road, and he'll be somebody who, in a year or so, I think we'll probably be hearing his name for a couple of different jobs. And I also want to throw a shout out to something that's coming up here, the Baltimore Catholic League tournament, the 50th anniversary, the BCL tournament. Regular season's getting ready to close up. The games will not be open, but the regular season championship is going to come down to St. Francis and Mount St. Joe for one game. And then we'll have the tournament in the following week, the 22nd, the 24th, and the 26th. And we'll have plenty of information on that at the website that I'm working with, bclbasketball.com.
Here's what I'll do, Chris. If St. Joe wins a tournament, I'll invite you on for a special political debate with Don Moeller, and you guys can sing the St. Joe fight song together, all right?
No problem.
Part of the recon on a Monday morning. You can find Don Moeller and I talking all things politics, local, industry, business, issues, vaccines, all of that at BaltimorePositive.com. Certainly doing a lot of March Madness, getting you ready for football and free agency and opening day and anything else. As Pedro Morales once said, I'm ready for any kind of action. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking. Worldwide Wrestling Federation and Baltimore Positive.